This is a good crowd we've got, and we might get some more people coming in. So everybody, welcome. For those of you who are new to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocacy Network, I'm Deborah Kagan, and I am the Executive Director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition that's started this initiative. And this is our third meeting. So we're very excited to have everybody here tonight. And the idea for this really came out of our summit during the summer, out of a session actually that was led by Polli, who's going to be one of our speakers tonight. And the idea being to share the experience that advocates are really having on how do we support getting complete streets in our towns, and what are sort of the tools and resources. And this was one of the topics, this community engagement piece was one of the topics that was suggested everybody seems to want to talk about. We've got a whole range of kind of experience on this. And I especially think this is important because for the coalition, the work that advocates do in support of complete streets, the way that we interact with the various government agencies or advisory committees in our towns is really at the heart of a lot of our work. So being able to have a peer community that we can share this kind of experience is really what's at the heart of the idea behind this network. So tonight we're going to have three parts to this. The first part is going to be some presentations, short presentations by our three speakers, and I actually have written down everybody's official titles. So we're going to hear from Sam Rosenthal, who is the Research Project Coordinator at the Voorhees Transportation Center of Rutgers University, and he's going to be talking about key findings of a research study they did called Evaluating Complete Streets Public Engagement Practices, the results of a national survey. So we're going to start with that sort of perspective outside of New Jersey, across the nation. And then Sean Meehan is going to talk. He's the vice chair of the Highland Park Safe Walking and Cycling Committee. And he's going to talk about the community engagement there and working with the town, local government agencies. And then we're going to hear from Paul Mikowitz, who is current president of Bike Walk Montclair, my hometown and my originally advocate organization that introduced me to all this bike ped stuff. And he's going to talk about what the local grassroots campaign did to try to successfully get the Montclair safe plan passed. And then Polli Schildge is she's the founding member of the Asbury Park Complete Streets Coalition, and she's going to be talking about the efforts in Asbury Park to get a complete streets and their Main Street project, which was a major successful project there. So there's going to be, those four people are going to talk, and then we're going to have about 35 minutes of discussion. So because this is really about sharing and talking, and we don't have too many people tonight, I'm going to let that conversation sort of flow. So after they speak, we'll be asking all of you to talk about your experience. So what do you want to share? What kind of questions, what kind of barriers are you finding? And really to try have this sort of a roundtable discussion. We're also going to have chat open. And Lauren Rushing, who is our former community engagement manager for the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, is joining us tonight, and she's going to be monitoring the chat. So questions or comments you can also put in chat, and we'll be pulling from some of those as we go through. And we're going to do that until 8 o'clock tonight. And then I'm saved the last half hour, 8 to 8:30, to talk about this organization. Really want this to be an organization that's driven by advocates, by you. So I want to hear from everybody about what we should be doing. How can we be helping advocates utilizing this network? Where should we be going with the network? What kind of topics do we want to maybe have other presentations and speakers for? And I am hoping that some people will volunteer to form. What I'd like to form is a steering committee that will be putting together not only different sessions, but talking about how else we can be leveraging this fantastic group of advocates to create this community and help each other. Okay. You all also would be great if you could introduce yourselves, if you haven't already, in chat. Just let us know who you are, what town you're from. And just so everybody knows, we are recording this session, and we will be putting up the recording on the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition site under resources, and Lauren's going to share that link in chat. So this is the third meeting. As I said, the other two meetings have been recorded and are up there. There's some great presentations. What we're hoping to do is build this library of experience from advocates that you all can go back to and watch and learn from as we keep going. So thank you all for coming out on a night. And we are going to start. I'm going to turn this over to Sam Rosenthal.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. I'm just going to bring up some slides. So good evening, everyone. As Deb said, my name is Sam Rosenthal. I work at the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center at the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University. I would just also want to thank Deb and Lauren and everyone from the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition for inviting me to speak tonight. I have a few slides that I want to run through quickly. These cover some findings from a survey on Complete Streets engagement that our research center conducted in 2020. So in the fall of 2020, the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center partnered with Smart Growth America to distribute a nationwide survey on Complete Streets engagement practices. Over 500 responses to the survey were collected from planning and policy professionals and Complete Streets advocates representing nonprofits, government planning and health departments, and private consultants. More than half of the respondents represented either an advocacy group, community organization, or local government, and 80% of the respondents indicated having a Complete Streets task force or a bicycle and pedestrian advocacy advisory group or advocacy group in their region.
Wow, just so you know.
The survey results showed that an overwhelming share of respondents viewed Complete Streets engagement efforts as a way to build support for projects and programs, and a much smaller percentage of respondents used engagement as a means either to educate the public or gather feedback related to Complete Streets efforts, indicating that most of those surveyed see engagement as more of a one-way channel of communication. With respect to engaging with vulnerable populations, there were mixed results. As you can see, while it was more common for respondents to make efforts to engage with low-income populations, minority populations, and older adults, it was less common to engage with youth and differently abled individuals. The survey found that the primary methods of engagement used were social media, technology, school organizations, and community events. Respondents indicated that social media and technology in particular have been useful tools since the pandemic has limited in-person meetings and events. Some respondents noted that social media can be an efficient and cost-effective way to engage with other people about Complete Streets and bicycle and pedestrian safety issues, but at the same time, it limits the audience to mostly like-minded parties. Respondents also indicated leveraging existing resources such as PTA, safe routes programs, and community events to interact with people using existing communications channels. Quickly, I'm going to run through a few examples from the survey of how different groups around the country are engaging with the public on Complete Streets issues. There are a lot more that are mentioned in the report, but for now, I'm just going to run through a couple. In California, the Sacramento area bicycle advocates partnered with neighborhood associations who have a close relationship with residents and were able to implement Slow and Active Streets pilot project, which also involved community engagement via Zoom and surveys on social media. In Louisville, Kentucky, the Deer Park Neighborhood Association also worked with other neighborhood associations, as well as the local councilman's office and the Louisville Metro government, to implement improvements to a specific road corridor and raise awareness about the inadequacies of existing transportation alternatives in the area. The city of Ann Arbor implemented a strong public engagement strategy in updating its comprehensive transportation plan, including focus groups targeted at the general public, seniors and minority populations, behavioral, perception, and comfort surveys conducted online and in person, public open houses, committee meetings, and pop-up events, online interactive map activities, and emails and social media campaigns. And the city of Keene, New Hampshire organized a one-day tactical urbanism placemaking event in which they installed temporary bike lanes, parklets, and crosswalks using low-cost materials such as traffic tape, potted plants, and freestanding plastic bollards to garner feedback on proposed street improvements for a specific corridor. So just to quickly wrap up with some final thoughts based on the case studies, collaboration with key stakeholders is essential. This can include neighborhood associations, local nonprofits, community organizations, health departments, and economic development organizations, and housing authorities who have strong social connections with community members. In that same vein, hosting events at local community and art centers and meeting people where they are is an effective way of engaging with community members. And finally, the majority of respondents indicated using the pandemic as an opportunity to advocate for open streets and expanded sidewalks, and about a third of respondents successfully implemented these measures. So as I mentioned, if you're interested in learning more about any of these initiatives, I would recommend checking out the full report on the njbikeped.org website under the resources tab. I can also, when I'm done presenting, post that link in the chat. And finally, before I go, I just want to mention that the NJTPA Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program is currently taking applications. This program is a joint effort between NJTPA, Sustainable Jersey, and the Voorhees Transportation Center that offers free technical assistance services to municipalities for a specific project related to advancing complete streets in their communities. The application deadline is February 11th. So if you're interested in applying, I'd recommend visiting the Sustainable Jersey website. I've included the link there. I'll also post it in chat after I'm done. And here you can find more information about the program, as well as webinars that will help you with the application process. So thank you for letting me speak. I will now turn things over to my colleague, Sean Meehan.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Meehan. As Sam mentioned, we do work together at the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers. But tonight I'm actually talking about some of my volunteer work with the Highland Park Safe Walking and Cycling Committee. I'm the vice chair. Locally, we call the committee SWAC. So, very affectionately. So SWAC is a mayor-appointed all-volunteer committee established by ordinance to be up to 25 members, though we don't have nearly that many. The ordinance establishes a council liaison and a police department rep to the committee. The goal of SWAC is to advise, review, and monitor the implementation of policies and programs affecting travel on foot and by bicycle within Highland Park, and also between our neighboring communities and Rutgers University. So SWAC sort of has an interesting start. We grew out of a local Complete Streets Advisory Board that helped pass our Borough Complete Streets policy, which I want to update, but that's an aside. Anyway, the committee was reborn during the efforts to complete a district school travel plan with our Transportation Management Association, or TMA. So our TMA Safe Routes coordinator at the time was also a resident, and he had also been a member of the original Complete Streets Advisory Board. So to build on the success of this plan partnership that came together, SWAC was established to work with other township committees to secure funding, implement the school travel plan, and usher new projects forward. So as I mentioned, the council and mayor were pleased with the school travel plan, and a former council member wanted to start a committee to keep the project moving forward. she contacted my colleague at the Voice Transportation Center, Trish Sanchez, who also lives in town, and Trish brought me in. This has kind of been our model for recruiting members. So we've been mostly relying on word of mouth and friends recruiting friends and neighbors recruiting neighbors for new members. We've also been able to recruit some new members through some of our events and by trying to be as visible as possible within the community. So we have a dedicated core group right now, but we're still a small committee. So attracting and keeping members is hard. We've had some significant turnover. To continue moving forward, we focused on working within the existing local committee structure and reaching out to other groups within town, such as the Universal Access Committee, Sustainable Highland Park, the Public Works Department, and we also have worked with some high school groups to recruit local student reps who have really been great with, kind of getting the youth perspective and also involving students in our programs. So we also rely on a partnership with specific people for specific events and projects. So I have on my slide, meet people where they are, and that's been an important thing for us. We have a lot of people who just really don't have the time to be a regular member, but they have a lot of experience and skills that they're willing to offer for certain events. So there's certain people we know if we're doing a bike rodeo, we can contact them and they're great help, but usually for some of our other things, they're really not able to help. So we've been given respect in the community by showing that we add value to the community. We have a table at most town events. We give out safety materials, water bottles, bike lights. We mainly use this as an opportunity to get feedback about concerns from residents. So having this stuff to hand out is nice, but even before we had stuff, we had only smiles and paper to talk to people and write down their thoughts on walking and biking, good and bad. So we also show our value by sponsoring various community walk and bike events, such as bike rodeos, walk to school days, and also pop-up bike lane demonstrations. We've done 2 of them now. So planning and using those plans to apply for funding has been critical to our success. Working with our TMA, we developed that district school travel plan that I mentioned, and also a school bike assessment to document pedestrian and bicycle needs around the school. Using this data, the borough was able to apply for and receive 2 Safe Routes to School grant awards from NJDOT to install curb cuts and other pedestrian safety improvements around the schools, as well as free design assistance from NJDOT to implement these Safe Routes to School grants. So SWAC also applied for and received a local technical assistance grant from NJDOT to develop a pedestrian and bicycle master plan for the borough. This plan is the backbone of the vision we have for our community moving forward and has been adopted into the borough master plan. So another great thing we've been able to do is, so the ordinance that established SWAC also specifies that we get to review development applications before the planning board and advise them regarding bicycle and pedestrian issues. This has been really great. This has allowed us to influence new development. This is a small town, but there's always things getting redeveloped, rebuilt. And it's allowed us to influence some of the changes in our community. So here are some of the lessons learned along the way. Politics are important. We would not have been able to accomplish much of anything without the support and dedication of our council liaison. So we are an official committee of the town, and having the council liaison has really helped us get through the borough process and also helped to garner support from fellow council members. Having this person dedicated to our vision it's been amazingly valuable. So having the council support made projects move a lot faster than they would have otherwise. So relatedly, public outreach is also vital. Minor dissent can cause huge problems, especially when elected officials are involved. So a vocal minority can cause a huge disturbance. We try to go to all the public meetings and events within town to interact with the community. We record negative and positive feedback. So this has kind of been an important thing to keep in mind for us, because some people come in and they're a little combative, but we talk to them, we keep calm. Even if we disagree, people have been much kinder, and we found a little bit more common ground when they see that we're willing and we're interested to write down everything they're saying, that their opinion does matter, whether we agree with them or not. So it's been important to listen to people and make sure we record everything. So every event we sponsor is also an opportunity to talk with residents to better understand their concerns and priorities. Our bike rodeos have been an especially great way to not only help teach children bike skills, but also to discuss issues and concerns related to walking and bicycling with their parents. These conversations have been amazing, and they've even led to some new committee members, So some of the parents we've met at these events are now on our committee. So if we learned the hard way to ensure that all positive feedback is recorded. Following our first pop-up bike lane project, a vocal minority complained loudly and made it seem like everyone hated the project, when in truth, most of the feedback from the residents who participated was very positive. So many more people were supportive of the project than were against it, but we were so busy actually implementing the bike lane that we didn't really have anyone recording feedback from the participants that day. So we should have recorded the positive information better to counterbalance the relatively few but loud negative opinions. So we also learned that it's okay to start small. Our first pop-up bike lane may have been a little bit too ambitious. So we installed a temporary protected bike lane that moved parking, but didn't actually eliminate it. So you can see, oh, do I have that up? Yes, so that one, sorry, that picture is on the far right. So we just kind of shoved the parking over. We didn't actually eliminate it. Well, that still enraged people. So the problem with that was, again, with this loud minority, it kind of scared some council members from wanting to try a second pop-up. So we really had to state the case and keep working with them to get our second pop-up, get their support for that. So our second pop-up bike lane was a completely different experience. It was a contraflow bike lane on a one-way street that didn't change parking at all. And it was also a known location where residents were looking for a better bicycle connection from a local park into town. So going where we already knew we had some support made all the difference. The people who lived on the street and other local resident users loved it. We got nothing but positive feedback this time. And all we kept hearing all day was they wanted it to be permanent. So that feedback got delivered back to the borough and they were aware that this is something people wanted. So another way we connected this was, so as part of our development review for a new apartment building being built on that street, we encouraged the borough to ask the developer to include the bike lane. So having witnessed this and having our documented support, they knew that they already had resident support and the borough made the request. And now this pop-up will soon be permanent. So while this is a smaller project, it led to a more popular real world result and restored confidence in pop-up events with the council. So what are some of our current concerns? So unfortunately, our founding council liaison passed away in 2020. She was truly a visionary and an activist, and she's greatly missed within our community. So it's took a little bit of time to sort out who would be our new liaison, but we do now have a new permanent liaison who is wonderful and very interested in continuing our work. So while a little bit of institutional knowledge was lost and we're trying to regain some files and things like that, we've been working together to continue our plans, and I think things are going to be great moving forward. So the other thing is momentum during the pandemic. So COVID greatly slowed down our momentum. Our group did not meet for a significant amount of time. We've transitioned to online Zoom meetings, but they really aren't the same. And a lot of the social aspect of the group is gone. It used to be, we met in person, there was a lot of chat, things just seem to be a little friendlier, and that aspect is gone, and I do miss that a bit. So we've also wound up canceling all of our public events, which were really the backbone of our outreach. So we've relied on this regular public interaction for feedback from the community and for also keeping walking and biking issues and concerns as part of the public focus. So we're hoping to work with the schools to schedule a bike rodeo again for this spring. And I think that'll be fine because, an outdoor event. And we're also going to evaluate some other upcoming opportunities within the borough. And hopefully some of our annual events like our street fair and things will be back. And we can have a table and meet with folks again, because that's really been kind of the key to our success, is just talking to people. So COVID's also caused a lot of stress for everyone and has led to some competing priorities, both within the borough and within our own members' lives. So it's really slowed us down a bit, and it's been tough to stay focused, but I think we're starting to get back on track. Let me, stop sharing. So that's pretty much my presentation, and I think we will talk more later, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Mikowitz, who's the president of Bike and Walk Montclair.
Great, thank you, Sean. That was fantastic, and a nice segue to what I wanted to talk about, in that being the key learned lesson over these last couple of years about public engagement and community engagement to make things happen. So I'm just going to, I don't have a slide deck to share, but I do want to share just this, and that is, this is off of our website, Bike and Walk Montclair, and we have been battling for 20 years now. So Bike Walk Montclair is actually entering its 20th year, yet we don't have any bike lanes to show for it. And so although there was a great job done by Mike Dannemiller and NV5 a few years ago, 2016-17, to create a Streets Are for Everyone plan for implementation of bike lanes and walking features and just everything having to do with transportation in town, there's been a lot of obstruction on a town council level. So we've been engaging the community. One of the tools we used was a survey, just reaching out, trying to get some visuals in front of people. And we've done things like pop-up bike lanes and things like that over the years. But our real struggle has been to get the town council to take that SAFE plan, the Streets Are for Everyone implementation plan, and actually adopt it into the master plan. So we finally got onto a campaign following up this survey with a lot of outreach, social media, emailing, calling people, and getting their attention to a planning board open forum. So we were lobbying with the planning board to have a Zoom meeting. All their meetings are on Zoom, and to get public comment, to get as many people to call in to talk and express their concerns. So we were amazed. You know, we tune in, we're calling in, you know, you're listening to the meeting, and we were just amazed at the number of people and the compelling, you know, statements in support of adopting the SAFE plan. And you could just sort of see the planning board kind of roll over and say, okay, no mas, we got it. And they approved it almost unanimously. And so that take home for us is that we're only as strong as the support we can rally behind what we do. And we were very focused on getting them to adopt this plan. So now we're at the stage where, okay, what's the next step? I'm going to stop sharing. But the point was getting individuals in the community, not just our Bike Walk Montclair board members, but to call in and make themselves known. We did a postcard campaign that was part of that, rallying the support. And Deb, I think you kind of mentioned it was a similar type call-in campaign for the Essex Hudson and the power of that as well. So that's really the message I wanted to leave. We do not have a advisory committee in town to handle the implementation of this. That's something we're working on. There used to be a pedestrian safety committee, and over the COVID years, and it's kind of gotten dismantled. So we're working now to direct that pressure to create some sort of a official arm of the government to help implement that plan. But the power of community engagement, I think, was the lesson learned here. And that's pretty much it. Before I introduce Polly, and maybe we'll have some conversations and questions later on, I do want to just put in a commercial, and that is, as part of New Jersey Bike Walk Coalition, we have a grant to be able to implement some cycling savvy training, bike education training to communities that are interested at no cost to that community. So if you're interested, please contact me. I put my contact information in the chat, and I'll be working with communities trying to build bike-friendly communities and actually coming in with kind of boots on the ground, butts in the seat training, on the bike training, as well as classroom training as part of that. So please let me know. I'll be reaching out. I'll be sending emails to the contact list I have for this, this group. And if you know of somebody who might be interested, please let me know. Having said that, I want to introduce Polli Schildge from Asbury Park. And Polli is a amazing force in Asbury Park. Everything I see happening in Asbury Park has Polly's name written all over it. So Polli, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, all of us have such parallel stories. I see intersections with what's going on in Highland Park and with Montclair. And Sam, your presentation, we've faced all of the above, or many of the above, in Asbury Park. We're most known for the success that we had in 2016 when the city council had rescinded or had rejected the New Jersey Department of, thank you, Lauren, had rejected the road diet, the proposed road diet. And we as residents got together in a living room and realized that we had to make sure that the city did not reject this plan. And they did, and within 18 months. It took a lot of lobbying. As you can see, here we have a logo, a banner, we had an infographic printed. We marched in the St. Patrick's Day parade. We created other printed materials. Lauren, you can pop to the next slide there. And you can see us doing, Lauren, hit the next slide. Yeah, so we're marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade with that banner. We had a fundraiser party. The mayor is even in that picture there in the top right. We did a massive parking, valet parking at the huge See Here Now festival. And I continued to do the slow rolls, which we even had the recently disbanded bike patrol officers attend one of the slow rolls that I did in the lower left-hand corner. They came along, which was great. So visibility, talking about engagement in the community, and showing up, doing whatever it takes to make yourselves visible, and hopefully not annoying, which we really, really were in the beginning, believing that the city council missed a huge opportunity, and we were afraid that that bucket of money from DOT would go away. So the city council members were walking away from us. They were turning on their heels and walking away when they saw us coming, and continuously showing up at the microphone at city council meetings. And Lauren, you can pop to the next slide. So we became very much visible in the city everywhere with our green T-shirts on, helping to implement the scooter share after the bike share went away, hopefully temporarily, helping the police officers give out bike lights. And literally, I mean, there's our former AG there getting a T-shirt, and just everywhere we could possibly be to say, we're here, we're here. Here's printed materials, as Sean mentioned. All we had was paper. Then we were selling T-shirts, but mostly it was about smiling and finding out what people wanted, how they felt about the road diet for one thing, and everything else related to getting around in the city on foot or on bikes. And Lauren, you can pop to the next one. This is an interesting offshoot. I created a Facebook page, an Instagram, and a website, and it was discovered by a professor at Monmouth University. So talking about reaching out to youth, this was an amazing opportunity that I hadn't expected, but did come about because of the outreach I had done with the website and the Facebook, the social media. So when she contacted me and asked if I would help her create a program for her digital design students to do a subject that she had selected because she had some background in California with complete streets, and she wanted to make this be the theme of their project. So this will be a link that you guys can reach out to me for. It will also be on our website and our social media. These students put together an incredible project, different ones, 4 different projects, that were ways to help to implement the 4-foot passing law and bring awareness to complete streets initiatives in Asbury Park in particular. So hopefully everybody will reach out to me and I can get that information to you. So education within the city, I think I have one more slide. The city in general, the population has come to realize that we're here. When I say we, our group has diminished in terms of numbers. We were huge in the beginning. You could see the attendees at that party with the mayor there. He even came on some of our bike rides, and some other city council members did. We were the new face in town after we annoyed everybody and became popular and nicer. It became a thing, and it was, let's get together with Asbury Park Complete Streets Coalition at the brewery, where we had another fundraiser. We still have a pretty good number of people attending the bike rides, the slow rolls, but the number of advocates within the group is kind of 3 now. Although I know that the support is still there, that I'm getting outreach almost every day on our social media. How can I help? So we are not a committee in the city. We're just a bunch of advocates, loosely organized. Creating more of a coalition is one of my main goals now going forward, so that we can be more organized and focus on, instead of a big list of all the things that we want, and there are many after we did accomplish the road diet in the city, and the city council and the mayor are behind it completely. There's still so many more things, and all of us know what they are in our cities. More bike infrastructure, a network of bike lanes, better traffic signaling, so many things. But rather than throw all of that at our transportation manager and our city council and our city leaders, I'm trying to approach it more as a portfolio approach, and picking out one thing at a time, or maybe two, and focusing on those most important things. And to us right now, there's a lot of support for an open street or a pedestrian plaza on Cookman Avenue, our business district, which is stores and restaurants. Some of you may be familiar with. There's some pushback. And as Sean said, the loudest voices are the negatives, and they will make so much noise that it makes it seem like nobody wants this thing. But the fact is, the quieter ones are the restaurants and the businesses who love it. So that's our next and current effort to make this thing happen permanently. We've had some off and on pedestrianizing of Cookman, but the bollards go up, the barricades go up, and they come back down, and then at holiday time they say free parking. So that's like, we need cars to do business, and we know that we don't. So I have so many materials I can share with all of you, but I don't want to take any more time. We feel as though we've made our presence known in Asbury Park, and that road diet was a great success. But I would like us not to be known just for that, because there's so much more that needs to be done on a more intimate level. And that's pretty much it. The materials that I can share with you are many, so please feel free to reach out to me. I put my email address in the chat. So that's it. Thank you.
You're on mute, Deb.
Thanks, Lauren. I was thanking the four speakers. You guys did a great job. I really thought there was both a spread and a lot of overlap of similar issues, which we all seem to face some very similar issues. So first of all, I want to encourage everybody to reach out to each other. Like, we don't just have to talk in these bigger meetings, but I know that a lot of advocates are more than willing to communicate by email and have some conversations, like if you've got a particular question. So I'll encourage everybody to do that. And if you haven't put your email in the chat, go ahead. Also, the invitation has everybody on it as well. And just a little heads up. So this is something I learned because so I was in Bike Walk Montclair, as I mentioned, before I became the director for the coalition. And what I realized is that I did not come from a professional background in biking and walking. And a lot of times there's a lot of acronyms and organizational initials that we use if we've been doing this for a while. So I just want to encourage everybody, like when you're saying TMA and a lot of the initials, not everybody who's an advocate and who hasn't been doing this for a while necessarily knows what that is. The transportation structure in the state is actually pretty complicated and not very transparent, and there isn't a lot of effort to let regular people know what that is. So I encourage you all to, when you're using them, to say the names, so we sort of start to learn how, our transportation management and our management planning offices and our New Jersey Transportation Planning Association and NJDOT, there's a lot of initials that goes with this stuff. So just be aware of that. So let's open up the floor. I have lots of questions and things I could add, but I'd like other people to start it out. So it doesn't
Deb,
have
I just wanted to follow up on you just said, don't let the acronyms intimidate you if you don't know them. Tell people, oh, what does that mean? Make them say it to you. Don't feel less than if you don't know an acronym. I know a lot of people have told me that. And most people are more than happy to go, oh, sorry. They're just so used to saying it, they don't think about it. So ask them what it is. Don't ever be intimidated.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so you don't have to ask a question. You can share your experience. We can talk about, what's hard, what are the barriers. It doesn't just have to be about successes either. So, and we're not going to have raised
Deborah,
hands. Yeah, just go for it.
Just a quick reference to somebody in the chat. I think Sylvia asked about becoming an LCI. She'd like to become an LCI. We will be hosting an LCI workshop in Montclair. I'm waiting for the official okay, but it's going to be the first weekend of April 1, 2, and 3. And I believe in the chat, you were asking about the prerequisite course. There is an online prerequisite course that you can go through, and then you just have to get the skills on the bike in person. But at any rate, I just want to put that on the radar, although it's not on the league site yet, hopefully soon. Thank you.
Speaking of acronyms, LCI.
Oh, sorry. League certified instructor, cycling instructor from the League of American Bicyclists. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was perfect.
So
Paul.
that certification allows you to implement programs. Yes, a number of programs. The smart cycling program. There's youth programs. There are programs for safe driving. So there's a curriculum, lots of great resources, but it's an involved process.
Thanks, Paul.
We have a number of LCIs on the call tonight. And although there's a couple raised hands, I would suggest just reaching out, talking.
Yeah, we're gonna just go for it. There isn't that many people. If I feel we're having trouble people speaking, then we'll go to the raise the hand button at the bottom.
I don't want to occupy too much more of people's time, but I just wanted to piggyback off something Polly said, which I've had a little bit of success with. So it's again, like listening to the negative people. I've had people, and they don't think that you'll write their negative comment down on your board. So I do. And that, they think they told me, and then they walk away. But somebody wrote something like, nobody cares about this. They just want to get in their car and get where they're going. So I wrote it down. That's what he said. You wouldn't believe how many people stopped who might not have normally. And they were like, what? Who wrote that? That's horrible. And I had like probably more conversations than I did. And it was a way to engage those people who might not have stopped. So it doesn't always work out that way, but that was a specific incident where like I tried to turn his negativity. So he didn't have anything else he could say to me because I listened to him. And then it actually drew other people in. So it's awful and it's hard and they will yell at you, but just listen and write it down and say thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Sean. I wanted to revisit as well what you said and what Polly reiterated about the negative voices being the loudest. And I thought that was a really good lesson that you took away from your efforts in Highland Park. And I was just curious if anyone else had, I think that's like an issue that all of us can relate to. So I wondered if anyone here would be able to share any like successful tactics that they've experienced, or even just challenges as well with like, especially when you're talking to politicians, how to communicate to them that, yeah, these might be the voices that you're hearing, but this actually is representative of a very small amount of people in the community. So what can we be doing to sort of elevate the positive feedback over the negative, since that seems to happen more naturally with the negative feedback? Does anyone have any thoughts?
Lauren, this is Paul, Bike Walk Montclair, and I would say that getting different voices, different people up in front of town council, so they're not just seeing the same few people. And I think that's a way that we can impress on people that they can make a difference, even though they don't necessarily have the time to be part of Bike and Walk Montclair and come to board meetings and do all these other things. If they can just show up on one night for public comment and share their perspective, that's one more person that they have seen, and it's not just our little niche group from what they perceive.
Yeah, I think sometimes with politicians that hear from, especially the bike advocacy groups, like often kind of their eyes glaze over a little bit when they see us again, you know? So maybe it's also a good
Lauren,
thought. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'd like to reach out and invite one of our politicians on board tonight. Jay, can you give your perspective as a town council member?
Hey, Paul, thanks. Things have been pretty positive, actually. Of course, we've got a couple of our naysayers, but I think the advocacy efforts that we've had online through mayor and council have all been pretty productive. We just made sure we had coordination between the county and neighboring municipalities. We're working on a Rails to Trails project. We're looking at possibly the Rahway Valley line and now the central New Jersey. But so far, it's been all good. I've spoken to our small community business owners, and they're on board with it. They understand and realize the economic impact it would have for their locations. And so far, so good. We're just looking for the funding. So in the meantime, what we're doing is making sure we're installing crosswalks, trying to slow down traffic. One of the projects that I worked on when I first came on the council back in May was speed humps, having speed humps installed, speed radars. We just finished installing a couple of months ago sidewalks running along the Rahway Valley line. And next project I'm going to work on is crosswalks through safe routes to schools and trying to get signalization there on some of the county roads here and try to piece everything together.
Jay, thank you. If I may follow up with, how do you deal with or work with or influence your fellow council members who may not be as enthusiastic about this kind of work as you are?
Oh, I'm persistent. Persistent with them. I tell them basically, for example, let's hypothetically, another councilman in another section of town, when I talk to them about the benefits to not just residents and business owners, but to all of the wards, they seem to pretty much just jump on board, and luckily they kind of let me take the lead on it, and they're just happy enough to support it. So it's been I've been pretty blessed with that.
Hey, Paul,
They
let
all
me
realize
jump
it's a
in for
win-win.
just a minute also on this theme. Any real change requires political support.
Mhm.
And all of us who don't have that, in one of my towns I do, one of my towns I don't, it makes a huge difference. But we have another very effective council person with us, Jason. I don't know if you want to pitch in on this.
Thanks, Jim. It's like my cheerleader. I appreciate it. Yeah. I kind of to echo Jay a little bit. It definitely takes persistence. I would also say, even with a supportive council like we happen to have here in Metuchen, things still do take a lot of time. We are still working to have our first bike lane. We're looking, it might actually happen this year. I just saw Mike smile a little bit there. That's looking like it's going to come in the spring. So we're really excited for it. But that's been years in the making and years. And that's with, folks like former Councilman Todd Pagel, who was like carrying that torch for such a long time. And we've had Bike Walk Metuchen in town for such a long time pushing these things. So nothing moves as fast as any of us want it to move, elected officials included.
One of the ways that we were able to move our road diet forward in Asbury Park was that one of the early members of Asbury Park Complete Streets Coalition snagged pretty much the only naysayer on the city council and drove her around to see what road diets look like and feel like. I think she was actually driving the car, so she could sense what it was like. And turning her around was huge, getting her to understand what a road diet meant, because it sounds like a bad thing. A diet always sounds like a bad thing. So that was helpful. And then what we're trying to do now with the Cookman Avenue, the business district, is kind of the same thing. And in addition, that same naysayer of the road diet is also, she told me that she's afraid of bicyclists. And so now we need to get her out walking. she's probably never going to ride a bike, but out walking to see what it feels like to walk in a bike lane. How do you feel when you're out here vulnerable? And I think that active engagement can make a big difference. Talking about, the politicians in town, even if others are positive, if that one is the holdout, that could be the one that makes the biggest difference. So those ways of, personally engaging, I think are really important.
So we've done a lot of community engagement around the Essex Hudson Greenway. If people don't know, the coalition led the community engagement for this project in the state. And one of the things that I found was really helpful, we had a lot of benefits, right, that we identified with this particular greenway. And we started to really target organizations and parts of the community that might relate to one of the benefits, but not necessarily every one. So there were environmental benefits. So that was the environmental groups that we could reach out to, including the environmental commissions in town. There was the health benefits. So some of the health organizations and medical facilities, people who were more oriented towards that, or even the mayor's wellness committee sometimes in a town. So coming from a health perspective, they could get involved. Then there was the pedestrian and safety issues, and there might be other committees and people who could get involved in that. And one actually, so we had materials and we did presentations and we reached out, and Lauren did a lot of this work, reached out to particular organizations and groups of people and parts of the community that related to that, like the business improvement districts and heads of business improvement districts also had a stake in this, and they had a particular way of looking at it. And they also all had sort of different constituencies that they could draw on. So I'll just share one because it was kind of a surprise for us and unusual, which was, so we did a lot of bilingual outreach. A lot of the communities were Spanish speaking, and we had somebody who actually was focused on that. And we ended up with this really strong partnership with a faith-based organizations. So the Archdiocese of Newark actually has an environmental task force, and their local church members, this group of women at one of the major churches that had the largest Hispanic population, actually took this on as part of the Pope's Laudato Si, which was an encyclical that says that Catholics should steward and take care of Mother Earth. This led to tapping into this huge network of every church that was part of the Archdiocese of Newark, which is huge. So sometimes if focusing on a benefit in a particular group that you may not have thought of can lead to highlighting a lot of voices that haven't been part of this conversation before. And that was one of the things that really made a difference. And those people then made a big difference in getting some of the electeds on board. So when our elected officials heard that there was, this massive support from business improvement districts and from faith-based organizations, then they said, oh, okay, I'm going to come on board for this. And it started to snowball. So that was just something I hadn't expected. That really had a major effect. And we ended up with 120 organizations and 8,000 letters to the governor. So it took a while. And that's a project, again, Jay and everybody who's been talking about, takes a long time, Jason. That project was a couple decades actually in the making. So I just wanted to talk about something that Jason put in the chat, which we all face, which is how do we sustain our energy, our interest, our enthusiasm, our positive thinking that we can get this sort of done. And I wondered if anybody wanted to talk us sort of about how do you build morale in this, in this work and in the organizations, and if anybody's had some thoughts about doing that. Like Polly said, you start large, sometimes you end up with 3 people. How do you sustain that energy?
I think, I think essentially Mike has institutionalizing is one way to sustain. I think Mike has a good example of that.
Yeah, so in West Orange, I mean, the hat I wear locally as advocate, there was a small group of advocates that really wanted to implement change, much like many people have said here. And we got the ear of one of our council people, and he said, oh, what I think we need is we need an institutionalized group appointed by the mayor of a broad group of stakeholders that will they'll carry all these initiatives through and have plan review on development applications. That was huge. And that's a prototype West Orange has gotten done. And so West Orange's Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board meets, we've gotten some things done, a pop-up bike lane, a traffic calming job. We got a road diet done on our main street, which it took a couple of years, but with persistence, that all moved forward. But the beauty of it is it's going to live past any one of us individually, because it is set up by ordinance and will be carried through. Even if the mayor changes, politics change, it's going to keep going forward. So that's a prototype that I would really encourage. I think 3 different people said, how do we get this set up so it carries forward? In West Orange, that's been working real well. I don't know if that'll apply everywhere or if you can get that, but if you can, that's a whole lot better than screaming into the wind.
What's interesting is that between the public and the politicians, there's another layer that all of us have encountered, and that's the professionals, the engineers, the attorneys, all those people where it can become a dark hole, where when we try and get something, not Mike.
Who you calling a dark hole?
not Mike, but we all face this other middle level. When it turns about outreach, one of the outreach groups we need to outreach to are the attorneys and the engineers and the planners, and those people where once we get the public support and we raise the ruckus and we want the politicians to do something, they often turn to the professionals for their blessing or curse or whatever it might be. So in that outreach, I think all of us have to focus on who are they. They're reappointed often in many towns every year. There may be an effort to change who they are if they happen to be, and I'm being very candid about this, but there is an opportunity sometimes to change who's in place, who may be obstructionist. But I urge everyone to really pay attention to that middle ground of the professionals in place who outlive the political terms of the people in power, and it certainly outlived the energy of most of us as advocates, because we can get worn down. We've talked about how much time, meeting after meeting after meeting. And one of the towns, I'm involved in a couple of towns here in Morris County, and one of the towns, all it took was one member of a longstanding committee to tell the mayor, you don't want to deal with this anymore. And so we had to regroup and go back and go forward to it. But that's a group to really pay attention to and often reach out to. And they can be very helpful as well, or they can be obstructionists, but that's an outreach opportunity for all of us.
That's really a good point, Jim. And if you can establish trust with the people in your community too. So our mayor is very supportive, and we were doing our first pop-up bike lane. She invited the consultant engineer to a meeting, and he just, had a list of reasons why we shouldn't do it. And she just looked at him and said, oh, it's happening, so figure it out. And that was like one of the best moments of my life. But she knew us enough and had enough trust in us that it was a good idea. And she also felt empowered to tell him, no, we're doing it, figure it out. And he did. He worked with us. His initial answer was no, but she told him to work with us, and he did.
Yeah, it's wonderful when the political leadership views themselves as, tell me how we can do it. Don't tell me how we can't do it. But even getting that switch for some of our political leadership is difficult, because let's face it, some of the things we're talking about in the grand scheme of things may not, to them, with all the other issues they're facing, be as critical. And certainly during COVID, that's been the case. But if you do find that leader who's willing to say, no, this is good, we're going to do it, tell me how. That's what we need. That's who we have to find.
I've got a question for everyone, but in particular, those of you on town committees and town council, and that is, how is general speed as an issue itself for motorists factoring in? Are you getting feedback from people that might not normally weigh in about biking or walking, but just concerned about motorists traveling at high speeds?
It's one of the most effective things that I think we have for the inroads to the initial public outreach. So like many towns, we started a slow down campaign in one of my towns with stickers and pledges and all that goes into those we slow down campaigns. Very effective in getting people, because people see the cars speeding. So yeah, it's a very effective tool, at least so I've found in Morris County.
So maybe this is a moment, Jim, I'm not sure everybody knows, but along with speeding is this popularizing the new safe passing law. It's something that advocates can be bringing up in town as well. So Jim, you just want to briefly tell people about it who may not know about it in brief.
Yeah, real briefly, tremendous support from the political community, passed overwhelmingly, signed by the governor last August, in effect March 1st. Major public outreach events planned on May 1st. And it's a law that in some ways what it says is anybody not in a car has a right to be on the road, has a right to share the road and share it safely. And I think that's the key to this. We don't refer to it as the 4-foot law. It's a safe passing law. It's a way to safely share the roads, to safely pass. Distance of 4 feet is one element to it, but not the whole thing. So what we're looking for is to make sure that people understand that when they come upon somebody, it's another slow down, move over opportunity. It's another approach with due caution. It just makes sense with all the scooters and the wheelchairs and the bikes and everybody else who's out on the road, that we need for all departments to be aware of it. So that, we're working right now with a number of police groups to get them familiar with the law, with other outreach things. The state has been kind enough to create a coordinating committee that Deb and I are working with to get the safe pass across. But the major thing that I would love to know is we're putting together a calendar of events for May for this. And if you think you can do something in your town in May around, which is Bike Month, and we're calling it Safe Pass Month, or at least I'm going to start calling it that. But if you have something you might do in May to bring attention to it, let me know, and we can get you materials and posters. We're still putting all that together, but we can get you materials and go for it. That's a place too where if you do it in your town, you might want to reach out to these TMAs, which stand for
Transportation Management Association.
Thank you.
They cover the entire state. Wherever you live, you have one.
Right. So find out who they are, because they can be helpful in some of these events too. I've gotten free bike helmets to hand away. We just started a visibility at night campaign with free stuff that we got from my TMA as Trans Options here. So reach out to them. And if you can do a focused event around Safe Pass in May, we can back you up with some information and just keep spreading the word about attempting to control speed, but mostly add to the safe passing laws another way that we can share the roads more successfully and more safely after a miserable year, if you know what the fatality and injury statistics have been in the past year in New Jersey.
Thanks,
Jim.
Jim. Sean,
Thanks, Deb.
I just wanted to see if there was a link to the description of SWAC, whatever you call it, the committee, and sort of what its powers are, because you're one of the few that actually has powers over things like development, when there's a development planning issue in town that has to go through that committee. And I believe West Orange also has some better powers for their committee. So Mike or Sean, if you have links that describe your committee or any resources about that, I think that would be really helpful. A lot of people are asking, how do I get my committee to have some kind of power or teeth in relationship to the local government?
I just put a link about the committee in chat, and I think
Great.
The ordinance that established us is findable, but I'm not sure. I'll look for that real quick and see if I can find a link for it.
Because people are trying to figure out how to do that. I know we've been talking about that in Montclair as well. How do we get a committee? We have had pedestrian advisory committees and other committees. that really aren't listened to and don't have much power. So how do we get to that next level where there's actual power? And I know that you've done a lot of fundraising that's also got you a lot of people listening from the town council for.
Yeah, showing them that Highland Park is a very small town. There's not a lot of staff and not a lot of time to write grants. So us doing a lot of the legwork and helping them put together grant applications was very appreciated.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We have about 20 minutes left of this meeting. What I would really appreciate is if we could sort of pivot a little bit and talk about this network. I'm very interested to hear from all of you what you think we can be doing with this network. We've got a lot of people that have shown interest. The invitation went out to over 100 people, and a lot of people wanted to come and couldn't, and will be participating at different levels. So there's a real need and interest for advocates across the state to be able to talk to each other, to have a sense of community. There's a lot of similar issues that we run into, and there's a lot of experience that we can learn from each other. And advocacy really is the heart of the coalition. And it certainly is, in my heart, this is the, where I came from, is the advocacy role in this. So I'd really like to hear what you think we can do. We've had 3 meetings, we've done presentations, we're trying to sort of build a list of people. Everybody is welcome to these meetings, but we're really focusing on trying to reach out to the advocacy and pedestrian and complete streets advocates, committees, groups in town, no matter what level. If this is the first time you've ever thought about doing this, if you haven't talked to anybody in your town, or if you've had an organization and been doing it for 20 years. So I'd love to hear from you. Anybody have some ideas about what we can do to build the network, what we should be doing to be helping each other and building this conversation and exchange of experience?
I've got one little very tangible example. And what you mean by a network, I think, is a group of people. I hear network and I was thinking a whole bunch of bike paths. A couple of the folks.
Because you're an engineer, Mike.
But a couple of the I tapped the resources of New Jersey Bike Walk, and a couple of volunteers have helped me put together really a map of wish list projects. And okay, I took that and applied it at my day job, and we are putting the Garden State Greenway on the map across Middlesex County. The Garden State Greenway is going to be like the Parkway. It's going to go New York State border down to Cape May. And we're figuring out, okay, bits and pieces of it. And there's experts of everywhere that are part of this network. To me, this is a mind dump opportunity to get like-minded people together. And for me, get them to point at spots on a map and say, oh, I was thinking about this. Oh, I had that. And that was one resource that I was really appreciating, and we brainstormed. I mean, I could show you the map. It's on the other screen. If anybody wants to see those kind of things, message me, 'cause I don't want to derail the conversation. You want the teaser?
Yes.
May I? Am I allowed to share? I'm gonna keep it at satellite level.
All right, Mike, go for it.
See the purple lines? I mean, this is Capitol of Coast. This is the link. That's Delaware River Heritage Trail, but these purple lines, Northern Valley Greenway, Mars Canal, 9/11. Somehow we're gonna have to do that. And Cape May is kicking it. They got all kinds of good things going on. But New Jersey Turnpike? Nah, how about New Jersey Turnpike? I'm figuring out the parts right in around Middlesex County and making sure that they're getting into our capital plan.
So just as a follow-up to that real quick, if anybody doesn't know, because we're on a little sidebar here of trails, there is, coming off of the most recent trail summit, there is a Trails Action Network. And there's a website for it, where people who are working on trails in particular are getting together, trying to develop a state-connected trail system and network across the whole state. Mike's focused now on Middlesex. We've also been trying to put together something we call Newton, which is the North Jersey Urban Trail Network, which the Essex Hudson Greenway will be a major spine to. So if anybody wants to be part of the Trails Action Network, go on there and sign up for updates and emails on that. That's another whole area of resources. That summit was co-produced by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Transportation. And now there's a whole lot of advocates and people who are, including the coalition and myself, who are putting together all kinds of webinars. There was a recent webinar that was terrific also that's on that website coming up this week, I think.
Thanks.
Is there an entire, or is there a map that shows all of the trails in New Jersey? There's the Hudson, Henry Hudson, and the others. Is there something that shows all of them? And
yeah, DEP is working on that. They're preparing an interactive map with all the existing trails. I think there's a beta launch of it. Brandy is working on it from DEP. She's head of trails, coordinating for that. So that's coming out soon. I'm not sure it's completed yet. They're working on some of the layers. But yeah, that's a really big project. And those are existing trails. So Jay, that doesn't include, ones that we're looking at to convert, like trail rails to trails that are possible and potential. These are existing trails right now.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I have another question, and it's maybe too big for this forum, but the
no questions are too big, Polly.
Good. So this big one is the automotive industry building gigantic vehicles, black matte, black windows, black hubcaps, killing more people than ever. And that doesn't look like anytime soon like it's going to change. It's a bigger price point, and it's all about money. So the chance that we have of keeping people safe on our streets when drivers are driving faster, we need to build better infrastructure to slow cars down, because really the best way to stop drivers behaving badly is to build stuff that they're going to run into, and they'll try not to do that. And whether it's speed bumps or roundabouts or giant bollards or whatever it may be, it seems like an insurmountable problem to really be able to address. We can't change human behavior. We can make people want to abide by the safe passing law and care about each other. But bottom line is, if drivers are speeding because they can, because roads are designed for drivers, the 85th percentile, and, drivers can go fast, so they do, and they're driving giant vehicles, what are our chances here? I don't mean to be negative Nelly, but I sometimes feel like I'm latching on to these little successes that we have, and I'm so motivated and so happy. And then I think, how are we ever gonna, fight back to this gigantic industry that seems to just want to ruin everything we do?
Another offshoot is the Vision Zero work that we're doing in New Jersey, which emphasizes street design, which in and of itself has proven over time to have an influence on behavior. But moving to electric motors and keeping the same stupid size cars is a national disgrace, in my opinion, at this point. Yeah, we should be moving toward electric and climate friendly, but not to the size of the vehicles that are out there. I despair. I don't know what we can do at that upper level with the gung-ho money that's going into car design. The best we can do is to focus on, when they get on our roads, what do they have to do on our roads? One of our hopes, and one of the points I made during the safe passage legislation, was that by setting guidelines for safe passing, we're also telling the artificial intelligence people what they have to put in these vehicles when they drive. They have to program in whatever their algorithm is. They have to include this law and our other laws in what they're doing in those vehicles.
I mean, even at the same time, we have designs of new vehicles that have entire dashboard size screens, and they're
Crazy video games.
Yeah, video games. I mean, so I just feel like if the automotive industry really doesn't care and is all about building living rooms on wheels and doesn't care about what's going on outside of the vehicle that individual or people are in, you know, we really have to figure out ways to reduce car dependency and focus on transit, other modes, and really making it difficult for drivers to get around in our cities and towns, making it hard and inconvenient. And, you know, reducing parking, which is going to make everybody scream. And Sean, you know, your pop-up bike lane where you put the cars on the outside, we have a little strip in Asbury Park like that. And it was requested by the residents because there was so much speeding. But now that the cars are on the outside and those cars are being hit by speeders, they're complaining and they don't want that inside bike lane. They want to put the cars back against the curb and protect their cars. So changing car mentality is, I don't know.
I think that's actually a good topic for another kind of meeting and discussion. Car culture, like how do we address car culture? It's such a big, you know, part of who we are and what we deal with, and it's offshoots about parking, and it's offshoots about, you know, the increase in car size, which is kind of like the, you know, getting the extra big soda, like how did this all happen? All of a sudden we've got these huge cars, everybody has an SUV in that direction. So I don't think we can do it all tonight, Polly, but it's certainly an important part, I think, of the conversation about car culture and how do we start to educate and bring up issues when we're in the middle of this huge car culture. So,
But if I can say one thing to be a little optimistic,
please.
to counter that, you know,
Thank you, Paul.
you know, it took only a couple of generations for us to get from where we were before World War II to where we are today. It may take a couple of generations to get some real progress, but it's not like we're fighting against a 400-year culture or something like that. It's not going to be easy, but I'm optimistic because of the fact that this is all so new and experimental, this suburban culture that we've created. And there's so much evidence that the experiment hasn't worked out that I'm optimistic that it may take a generation or two, but I still think we can do it in that kind of a time frame, you know.
Thank you, Paul. And I will add that I've been going over, looking through the infrastructure bill and opportunities that are coming out of that. And I have to say that a lot of the language that is starting to come out federally is way more in favor of spending money on making things more bike and ped friendly, active transportation, connecting active transportation networks. A lot of this stuff is new and it is beginning to come out. And because there is money attached to it, I think it's going to start having a trickle down effect in the States and here in New Jersey. So you're going to see people wanting to start developing projects a little more because they can get the money now. So I think it'll be a very interesting period. You were certainly, you know, not over all the barriers as the current project that's going through, if anybody knows, the I-78 expansion of the Turnpike Highway project that we just did testimony on to the Turnpike Authority. They're continuing to try to do the same old stuff, but there's more and more people that are raising issues about that. Anybody wants to read that article that's in our social media from the coalition that just happened, was it yesterday or the day before?
Deb, there was a question that came up about how people are organized in the group. You know, what is it? What is a group? Is it a 501c3? Is it a what? You know, I'm just curious about, as we go around the group, I see a couple of 501c3s, a couple of town committees, a couple of just, we just got together and we're just, a citizens ad hoc group. I'm just curious what variety we have. I'm in one ad hoc, I'm in one town committee, I'm a couple of other just ad hocs. So what are the organizations?
Really the spread. So there's a number, Bike JC, Montclair, West Windsor are all 501c3s. Emmanuel has got bike group, the Hudson
Hudson County Bike Consortium.
Thank you, Paul. Which is a number of different bike organizations. Some are 501c3 and some are not. So I think we've got, full spread. And then there's the advisory committees, which are.
And Deb, it's still the case that if you want to do that, the coalition can act as a fiduciary if some group wants to organize and use.
Yes. So
can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. If you are interested in becoming a 501c3, but aren't there yet, and you want to start taking in some small amounts of contributions and build up to that, the coalition does have a support program where we can do fiduciary, as Jim mentioned, and we act as the 501c3. So if there are donations that want to come to you as an organization, we can act as the nonprofit or tax exempt status to do that. If you're interested in that, just email me, kagan@njbwc.org, and I can talk to you through more of the details of that. Some of the organizations, including Brick City Bike from Newark, also has that arrangement with us. And some other people I know have asked about that. So in the last just couple of minutes, I just want to get back to this really quickly. 2 quick questions. You can respond to either of them. Are there topics you want us to cover? And is this a good format, or should we be thinking of different ways that we can be doing this? And I am open to hearing from you by email as well as you start to think about this. Right now, we've been trying to do this kind of exchange with some presentation and some themed topics, like every 6 weeks or so. And I don't know if this is the best way to do this. So I'm really open to hear from everybody. Do you want to keep doing it like this? Do you have other ideas? And are there topics that are really pressing for you that you want us to have these conversations about?
Deb, this is Paul. I've got a question about this and a comment. That is around how we communicate. And Bike Walk Montclair, we've been using Slack somewhat successfully for a little while, a platform for communication. And I just recently, you introduced me to Emmanuel and Hudson County Bike Consortium, and I saw, oh, they're using Slack. And I really like the way they're using Slack, and it seems like a really good platform, a really great place to communicate. And they're doing it on a county basis, whereas we're doing this just in one town, Montclair. And I think it offers an opportunity. I would encourage people to look into it as a possible way to communicate. It's an easy way to have a lot of, to organize conversations, put content. I see, they have a calendar and people are putting up all the key meetings, like, hey, people, call in, public comment. These are the important town meetings. So it makes it easy to find that information. Emmanuel, if you want to expand on that, but I think you're doing a great job in Hudson County, and I see a lot of enthusiasm, and I like I'm even more of a enthusiastic about using Slack now that I've seen how Hudson County is using it. And as I said, we're using it in Bike and Walk Montclair, and I think it works well for communication and organization. Over and out.
Anybody else using Slack? Just curious.
I also had that thought earlier, although I might kick myself now for suggesting another Slack channel because I have trouble keeping up with the ones I already have. But I think it's a really great platform, and I like how you can organize your conversations based on topic. And I've also seen it with the Hudson County Bike Consortium, and I think it works really well as well. So I think that's definitely something we could consider.
We'll have to think about that. You're gonna run it, Lauren? Is that your time?
Well, that's the great thing about it is you just put it out there and then everyone else can kind of run it themselves.
We're starting one in
It
Union
does need
County.
a little weeding once in a while. It gets like really
Yeah,
get
yeah.
out of control. But yeah, Emmanuel and the Hudson group are doing a great job on that. Okay, so
So
we are
I-
close. Yeah.
I just want to add, I mean, I support it, even though I go nuts every time I have to learn some new platform. You know, if we find a better one, it's, you know, I'm good with that. But if we're looking toward maybe finally sort of getting beyond the COVID stuff, I think groups like this, just field trip, you know, but I sure would like to visit somebody's town and just walk around and have you talk to me. And I just find that so much of a learning experience to actually, one thing to see a picture, it's another one to say, oh, God, look at the way that, you know, so I'd like to do field trips.
I like that idea, Jim. That's a fun idea.
Invited to Asbury Park.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
Let's go to Asbury.
Let's do a walk or bike ride. Cindy Steiner came down when we were just getting started and we did a bike around and she was appalled. She said, it's the Wild West. This is crazy. And it's really come a long way since then. And yet, you know, when you live in a place, you see all the cracks and you see the understory of everything and see all the problems. But we really do feel like it's moving forward and it is slow, but it's happening. So let's talk about that. I love the idea.
Yeah, I love that idea. When maybe if it gets a little warmer, there is some snow coming our way this weekend, but I think maybe early spring, I'd love to do a field trip. I really like that idea. Just everybody in chat, Lauren has posted, we have a Google form for everybody to fill out with ideas for this network. So if you've got ideas or topics you want to do or questions or anything, please go to the form. Again, it's in the chat that Lauren just put in. And I'm going to ask this as our closing. I do think it would be helpful to have a small group of people to help us organize some of this going forward. And I would love to know if anybody is interested in being part of a steering committee for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocacy Network. If you are interested, please let me know, either put it in chat, email me, however you can get a hold of me. I'm looking for a few people who want to help organize this network and can be part of shaping it and coming up with ideas. So please, if you'd like to be part of this and building this network, let me know. Either put your name in chat now or give me a quick email. Paul, I see that you are interested. Thank you very much. And anybody else think about it, you can always get a hold of me at kagan@njbwc.org. So everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I find these really, really interesting. I learn a lot from you. I think we just have so much to share and teach each other. So I appreciate your time, especially on an evening after you've all had a long day of work or children or whatever you're up to. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Make a quick note as well that I thought we had done some of the previous meetings, for those of you that weren't there, in a little bit of a more structured format where we had people raising their hands and doing more of a Q&A. So I just wanted to note briefly that I thought doing a more open kind of discussion format this time worked a lot better, I thought, and give a thumbs up if you.
Yeah, I like it too. And I think that, you know, that's what we're trying to get to, more of this, because this is really about community. I think it's about building community and learning from each other. And one of the ways that you keep morale going is that you feel part of community. So doing this kind of exchange, knowing that you're not alone, especially if you're one or two people in a town that's trying to do this, it's really helpful to know there's somebody else out there to talk to about this. And doing things together, I think, help also build our morale. So that's why field trips and ideas like that, you know, are just as important, really. We have to keep ourselves going. As somebody who's been doing advocacy for decades of my life, you got to pace yourself. And doing small things that make you feel like there are other people out there who feel the same way, and that we can do small progress, even if we're not getting some of the big goals. And then all of a sudden, some big goal gets there, and you've gotten to this place that you didn't think you could. And I've just experienced that. So it's a very exciting year for us with the Essex Hudson Greenway. So I encourage you all to keep coming, share with us your ideas. We really appreciate you being part of this network. And we are in this together. Everybody stay safe, stay well, and we'll be in touch soon with another session for this.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Right.